Everybody, to divisional previews of the chatting average. We've made it back. You know what divisional previews mean, ladies and gentlemen?
It means we're previewing a division.
Okay, I was going to say it meant.
Sorry.
I was going to say it meant we're 6 weeks away from the baseball season starting.
That's kind of crazy. That's kind of crazy to think about.
You know, actually, we're 1 day away from the baseball season starting. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow.
That is true. That is true. If you ask some people, though, if you ask several Major League Baseball accounts on Twitter, baseball season started the minute that football season ended. How do we feel about that?
I mean, realistically, it started 2 days later. So,
yeah,
if your start of the season is spring training, which I'll be watching spring training games, even if it means they're going to pitch 6 pitches in 1 inning and then go, that's it for that inning. We're going to go to the next one. I'll be paying attention. So you're only a few days off.
I am not a big spring training game watcher, but only because while spring training games are going on, there is actual in-season college baseball going on.
Right.
And in my opinion, college baseball is a better product than spring training Major League Baseball, in my opinion.
I like seeing from spring training is what certain prospects look like against major league or close major league talent. I'm excited to see what Colson Montgomery looks like against major league pitchers for the Sox in spring training. Even if it is like, hey, this guy's going out there and throwing 47 fastballs and then we're going to pull him. Like, okay, but hey, can he hit a major league fastball? Cool. I mean, that's just what
that's the question I like discussed, isn't it?
Pretty much like the only thing I care about in spring trainings for the pitchers. So if you're worried about what your acquisition over the winter looks like on your new team and who's your new ace for your team out of the middle of nowhere, this is your time to figure out if he's got the stuff. But also don't expect anybody to be good until a month into the regular season.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy, and that's kind of a development that's been relatively recent, I think, in the baseball scale, is you see these pitchers who don't necessarily ramp themselves up in spring training. They don't see very many innings or whatever, and then when the season rolls around, either they have a quick elbow injury that sidelines them for a month, or it takes them a while to adjust to major league hitting, things like that. I wish pitchers would take spring training a little more seriously so we could avoid that kind of ramp-up period, because it really just puts a damper on the start of the season.
Well, I think the thing is like spring training is for pitchers. Hitters don't need a month of baseball to figure out how to swing the bat again. They've been swinging the bat all off season. Live ABs are good, but you really need like a week of live ABs and then you're ready to go play baseball. That's why you see within a week, like Aaron Judge is going to hit 4 or 5 home runs a week in spring training, just because if he's playing all 7 games or 6 games in a week, he's fine. Like if the pitchers really wanted to, they'd have like an extra 2 more weeks of spring training.
I think that's fair to say. H, any thoughts?
I'm of the same mind. I really like the really stupid numbers they assign people.
Yeah, that is fun.
You've got players wearing like 77 as like a middle infielder, and it's like you would never do that. Miguel Rojas is wearing 72, and we keep talking about that, but it feels like a spring training number for a reason, and part of me wonders if he's ever going to switch off of it or if he's just going to let it ride. But I really like that. I like seeing, what new people look like in new threads, like what is, what is Garrett Crochet going to look like in a Red Sox uniform, for example? I'm more here for the aesthetics of baseball. Just having baseball on, just be a thing again that at any given time baseball is going on. I need it. I need that.
And also, perfect day tomorrow. I know games don't start tomorrow, but there will be enough coverage of pitchers and catchers reporting that me and John are in Columbia, Missouri, where we might get 2 inches of snow by 10 a.m., which means that the entire state will be falling apart and we will probably lose the electric grid and we won't be able to go to classes. So we've got nothing to do but sit around and look at our laptops. and hope that, oh, wow, look, Garrett Cole showed up to spring training.
And there's no shortage of those type of videos, I think, on social media right now, especially from beat reporters for teams. You're not really, respectfully, gaining anything from watching, a 3-time Cy Young winner play catch from 40 feet. Like, that a pitcher can throw a baseball. You've seen him do it 7,000 times. So really,
What I'm excited.
the easy engagement bait tweets that are going around on social media right now is like there was one from this morning of Nick Madrigal showing up at Mets camp carrying a Chicago Cubs duffel bag because he has not yet reported a Mets cap, which means they haven't given him a Mets duffel bag.
Which,
Right?
I understand that.
Yeah. It's videos like that are so big on social media right now, and it's like, this is really what we're getting upset about. Like, come on, guys.
I understand that, but it's also like organization couldn't ship him a darn duffel bag.
Yeah.
Like, that's my thing is like, just, they didn't get him merch after, what do you do, sign or trade? Whatever happened. Like,
it was a signing.
It just makes no sense to me that, like, they weren't like, here's a Mets shirt to walk in with. Like, but yeah, I don't know.
To a certain extent, I get that, but also I bet there was some waiting in his locker today. I bet he shows up tomorrow with a Mets duffel bag. He just probably hasn't met with Mets brass yet. People show up when they want to show up for spring training. Right. Report times are weird, and they roll in. And
also, for a guy like Madrigal, who's going to be probably yo-yoed this year between positions, between levels of the league, honestly, showing up early might give you a little extra boost in that, making the 26 man. My favorite thing to look out for during the start of spring training when pitchers and catchers are reporting is like, look at this pitcher. He's got a beard.
Every ex-Yankee.
Wow. Yeah, right. Every ex-Yankee going to walk into spring training with a full beard.
Also, Devin Williams for some reason.
Yeah, buddy. Wait, get ready to learn great clips.
He's hanging on by a thread, John. He's hanging on until they start asking him to pay for hanging on.
Do we want to get started? Our first division?
Yeah. Absolutely. So for those of you who are first-year listeners of the Chatting Average, welcome. This is the second year that we're doing divisional previews, and the way we determine the order of the divisions of preview is we don't. So today we're starting with the American League East, and we will take a bit of a deeper dive into each team in the American League East, talk about what they've gained, what they've lost, and where they stack up as we head towards the season. We're starting this 6 weeks away from Major League Baseball starting because there are 6 divisions in Major League Baseball. That's just easy math. And of course, with the American League East, we'll go bottom to top in order of how they finished last season, which means that we are starting today and this season, by extension, with the Blue Jays of Toronto. What's new with the Toronto Blue Jays?
The Blue Jays, their major offseason losses is what I like to go through first, just so you kind of get an idea of what they need to fill. They lost Ryan Yarborough, Genesis Cabrera, Dylan Tate, Jordan Romano, and Spencer Horwitz. Their additions, though, are Andres Jimenez, Jimmy Garcia, Josh Walker, Jeff Hoffman, Miles Straw, Anthony Santander, and Max Scherzer.
So you see, out of that offseason losses group, you see a lot of relief pitchers. So kind of that bullpen was a point of emphasis for them this offseason. They addressed that with Jeff Hoffman, a 3-year deal for him. But they also go out and get some intriguing pieces around the infield as well. I want to talk about Andres Jimenez. How do we feel that he fits in to this Toronto squad?
I think he fits in really well. I think otherwise they were going to have someone like Will Wagner start at second base, and I'm high on Will Wagner. I think he's good, but you saw him bandy about the infield as sort of a utility infielder, and I think that's where he'll fit for the moment because the Blue Jays have no shortage of utility infielders, especially up the middle. But I really, really like Andres Jimenez as that acquisition. He is an elite second base defender. Elite. He's possibly the best defensive second baseman in the league. Where he falls short a little bit is his bat. It hasn't really come along, but this is, it's a change of scenery. He's out of that. He's out of that double play tandem with Brian Rocchio in Cleveland. So I think he's someone to look forward to keep up his defensive play and possibly start swinging the bat a little bit better.
There's a handful of guys on this roster for Toronto I think that we want to see swinging the bat a little bit better if this team's going to continue to be competitive. You look at Alejandro Kirk at that catcher spot. Bo Bichette had a really bad year at shortstop. If he can get back to form, I think that'd be very helpful for them. In the outfield, you look at guys like Springer and Santander, both of which have aged a lot more than when they were in their prime. But if you can still try and recapture some of that prime, I think they're very good pieces to pair, of course, with the cornerstone rather of this Toronto lineup, which of course is Vlad Jr.
Yeah. I think. Go ahead, John.
No, go. You got it.
Okay. I think Vlad Jr. is going to really need to not get cold this season. And obviously that's kind of an obvious statement, right? He's the linchpin of this lineup. But it's exactly that reason why he can't. It's worth saying because you not only do you have a lot of new acquisitions, you have a lot of young guys. You're looking at the players that you might have around. Aurelvis Martinez, Spencer Horwitz is gone. Will Wagner's there. Davis Schneider as well. And a plenty of other players that they sent up and down and up and down. He really can't afford to be cold. I don't think he will be necessarily. I think he'll, the floor for Vlad Jr. is good, but I think this is going to need to be a very consistent year for him.
Let's talk quickly about the rotation for Toronto. On paper, you have Kevin Gausman as that starting pitcher 1, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, their newest offseason addition, Max Scherzer at the starting pitcher 4 spot, and then Bowden Francis rounding that lineup up. That's 5 righties and 3 of them that have aged a lot. How do we feel about this rotation in general? Do we see it as a 1-year solid solution, or do we see this as something that could potentially be a weak point for this team?
I think you're going to get good years from Gausman and Barrios. I think they showed last year that they can give you solid outings. I don't know we've said this, but I don't know how I feel about Scherzer. I don't know if he's going to pitch 12 games or if he's going to pitch 25 games, but I think that I like Bowden Francis, and I think he's going to be a pretty good 5 for them this year if he stays there. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's obviously not the best in the division. It's nowhere near close, but it's not a bad pitching rotation.
Any final thoughts on this Tampa Bay team, or shall we move ahead?
Not the Tampa Bay team.
No,
excuse me,
Toronto.
The Toronto team.
That's all right. No, I think this is a team that they in some important ways they have a lot of the youth movement, but their old players are old. They are really they might be really valuable in the locker room, but it's going to be that value on the field that players like Springer and Scherzer, historically very injured. Are they going to spend more time rehabbing than they are actually contributing to your team?
It's going to be interesting to watch for. Moving ahead to the team that finished 4th in the American League East last year, the Tampa Bay Rays. Big offseason for the Rays as they are moving out of, at least temporarily, Tropicana Field, playing outdoors this year. Not a lot of movement roster-wise, John. What do we have?
Yeah, losses come from Tyler Alexander, Dylan Carlson, Colin Poche, Jose Siri, It Is Not Your Day, Jeffrey Springs. Additions come with Danny Jansen, Eloy Jimenez, Alex Faedo, and Hassan Kim.
Alex Faedo, of course, the man that we had an emergency podcast for last week. This was a very, very big addition. I would argue that out of these 4 offseason additions, and Eloy Jimenez is, I think, quite clearly the worst player of this group of 4. Um, he's going to be the most interesting one to watch in spring training, because if he makes the roster and can kind of recapture some of that shine that he had as a prospect still coming up with the White Sox system, I think if there's any organization that can do that, it's probably Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's still a lot that Eloy Jimenez can give to a team. However, I think it comes out of the DH spot, and he should never touch the outfield grass again. I get what you're saying. Like, if a team's going to figure it out, it's probably going to be the Rays because it's the Rays. I have something about the Rays that I don't think they're going to be very good this year, like at all, like even to their expectations. That I'll talk about more when we give our projections. But I think you're right. That's an ad that is under the radar, and if they can figure him out in the first 40 games of the season, he could be pretty good for them for 162 if he plays 162, which I don't think he's ever gotten close to in his career.
We will see. H, what are you thinking?
This is a team that is a big fat question mark. They don't have a home right now. They're playing out at Steinbrenner Field down in Tampa proper, which is something they've been wanting to go to Tampa for a while now. And
yeah, that's exciting. That's a big step in the right direction.
It is. I don't think this is exactly the way they intended for that to go. I'm interested in Danny Jansen. Really, I am. Renee Pinto, Christian Bethancourt have been the recent years for them. Alex Jackson too. You know, Christian Bethancourt has long since passed, but he, like 2-3 years ago, was like, well, can he give it to us? They traded for him from the Athletics. He didn't give him anything. You know, that's what does Renee Pinto have? What does Alex Jackson have? Now you're trying out Danny Jansen. Danny Jansen, I think, could be an interesting value move for them. Ha-Seong Kim stuck a long time on the free agent market. He's rehabbing right now. He's probably going to be out there in May, if I had to guess. But he provides a more surefire thing up the middle. And, you have Taylor Walls and Brandon Lau, right? Which is like, I'd rather have Ha-Seong Kim than Taylor Walls because they're both really good defenders. And Taylor Walls can't hit the broadside of a barn. Ha-Seong Kim, assuming he rehabs right, actually can.
Ha-Seong Kim is such a Rays style player too, by the way. He plays 3 defensive positions in the infield, and he plays all of them at a I would expect the Rays to move him around all the time, platoon him, just depend on if they're seeing right-handed or left-handed pitching, because there's not a lot of names in this lineup that you're totally in love with. Obviously, your top 3, arguably top 4 in your lineup, and Brandon and Josh Lau, Junior Caminero, Yandy Diaz are probably pretty set in stone. But past that, there's just a lot of guys you're going to shuffle with, and I think Ha-Seong Kim helps shore up that infield when guys are going through cold streaks. He can play third, he can play second, he can play short, and he'll be fine anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed. Their pitching staff still excites me no matter what. Like Shane McClanahan, Taj Bradley, Ryan Pepio, Zach Littell, Shane Baz, and then like their 6th starter being Drew Rasmussen. Like, I don't know. Like, all of those guys are in major league rotations anywhere else, and like that's the thing is like, yeah, they may have guys in their lineup that are like, okay, we've got who playing right field today, but like their pitching staff is up, and it's the Rays. Like, it's always going to be good. And if some guy's not good, they're going to go look down at their single A team, and they're going to go, hey, that guy's been good for a week. We changed one little thing. He's got a degree difference in his elbow tilt, and they're going to pull him up, and he's going to pitch like 7 scoreless against the Dodgers, and you're going to be like, oh, cool, got it, yeah. Like,
and even as far as name value goes, when you look at this rotation, when you have McClanahan, you have Bradley, Pepio, Boz, Rasmussen. These are all guys. Obviously, Pepio came up in the Dodgers system, but everybody else is somebody that came up in the Tampa Bay system as a highly rated prospect, was somebody that at one point was thought of as possibly a future ace. And I think outside of McClanahan, they've all had various setbacks. Even McClanahan, to a degree, they've all dealt with injuries that haven't allowed them really to have a full season of phenomenal baseball so far. If the Rays can do some voodoo magic and figure out how to keep all these guys healthy, we're talking about maybe one of the best rotations in baseball.
I agree.
Closing note on that rotation thing. Ryan Pepiot got bit by a spider last year, and he was out for like 2 to 3 weeks because
I
he
do
was
remember
bitten
that.
on the hand by a spider.
Yep.
I'm not even kidding.
Earthquake.
So,
Sorry, I hit my desk.
If they don't get bitten by a spider,
unless it's the cool one from Spider-Man.
Unless it's the really cool one from Spider-Man. And like Ryan Pepiot still pitched fine before and after. I had some bad starts, had some good ones. So it doesn't look like he had any radioactive spider powers before or after. But who's to say? Who's to say?
I mean, yeah, these are all 5 of these guys, all 6 of these guys, I should say, I'm looking at their Fangraphs projections right now, and the worst of the bunch is Shane Boz's ERA projection is 4.18. If you're 6 starters of 4.18 ERA, you're going to be fine.
Yeah. I know, it's kind of crazy.
Do we have any more thoughts about the Rays, or should we move forward?
I didn't speak on Danny Jansen just real quick. I know that came through today, didn't it?
That might have happened today, yeah. It was recently for sure.
I actually really like that. The Blue Jays have done very oddly with him and Kirk, and I think it's really hard for a pitching staff to like their catchers when they're not always starting. And I think that it's going to be interesting to basically see Danny Jansen as the everyday catcher with Rortvedt kind of filling in whenever. I think that's going to be really interesting to see what it looks like when Danny Jansen has complete command of the rotation. If I remember right, a lot of the Blue Jays players, you'd hear about Danny Jansen's management of the rotation more than you'd hear about Alejandro Kirk's, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting piece. I think there's a lot of intriguing pieces on this Tampa Bay team. No, I'll say this for when we get into projections. Moving forward to the team that finished 3rd last year in the American League East, the Boston Red Sox.
Correct. The Red Sox lost a laundry list of players. Tyler O'Neill, Nick Pivetta, Kenley Jansen, Danny Jansen, not related. Reese McGuire, Lucas Sims, Chris Martin, James Paxton, and Luis Garcia. They do add, however, Justin Wilson, Aroldis Chapman, left-handed Aroldis Chapman. No, wait, they're both left-handed. Starting pitcher Aroldis Chapman, Garrett Crochet, Patrick Sandoval, and Walker Buehler. And so they added a bunch of pitchers, which is cool, I guess.
I don't necessarily know that pitching was what this team needed to address the most. Is that fair
to say? They needed one more starter, and they went out and got 3.
If you got 3 starters, you got no starters. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know.
No, that's catchers.
Anyway.
Wait, shit.
Well, they lost all their catchers too. That's the thing.
They did lose their catchers. That's a good.
You lose Danny Jansen. You lose Reese McGuire.
They have Connor Wong still.
Connor Wong. Boy, that really moves the needle for me.
I mean, you lose Reese McGuire. You're not too jacked about it. You thought he was going to be parked somewhere, but I'm not. I don't know how I feel about that being a backstop.
Anyway, look up Reese McGuire parking lot. I hear he had a really good home run out to one time.
Yeah.
If you're under 18, don't look up Reese McGuire parking lot.
If you're under 18, also don't listen to this podcast. I think the rotation for
don't say that. YouTube bot, that's not true.
Nice. The rotation for the Red Sox this year, I think, is very solid. I think adding Walker Buehler and Garrett Crochet into a rotation that already wasn't all that bad is certainly helpful. If Buehler can have a good season, you'll be very impressed with him. You have a guy like Lucas Giolito who should be coming back from injury, and hopefully he has a very good season as well. You're looking at probably 6 starters deep that are all at least mid-major league caliber. Like, this is a decent rotation.
I think the thing about this rotation that I like is they've got in my mind, two guys that could be the Cy Young winner in the AL. Garrett Crochet and Tanner Houck could both have a Cy Young year. And that's going to change projections in the division standings. But, like, will they both? Probably not. But, like, if one of them does,
they're certainly both
you're getting a win.
They're both capable of popping and having really good years. We've seen a lot out of Tanner Houck already in a Red Sox uniform, kind of as he transitioned out of the bullpen and into that starting rotation. He's a consistent 6-inning, 2 or less run guy. Garrett Crochet, obviously, we know what he from his time with previous organizations. I really like this rotation, but there's just a lot about this lineup that leaves me questioning how good this Red Sox team actually is going to be.
I agree. I think their biggest issue is I don't even know who David Hamilton is.
Yeah, their starting second baseman is David Hamilton. Their starting center fielder is Ceddanne Rafaela. Like,
I like that.
Willie Abreu is starting
good.
in right field. That's not great. It's not great.
I like Rafaela. Abreu's okay in right field. Abreu was good last year in right field.
The thing for me is just he was good. He had like an over 800 OPS or something as a rookie. I just no wonder that the Pacoda and Fangraphs can't agree on if this team is going to make the playoffs or not.
Yeah,
they are so mid. They're so mid.
Yeah,
the definition.
There's like none of these acquisitions besides Crochet are barn burning, and none of their losses are really that big of a loss. I feel like outside of Crochet, it was a complete net neutral. And so is Garrett Crochet enough to move this team to actually finish a season for once? Because they get like 60% of the way there and the wheels fall off. So for me, I have a hard time being confident about anything on this team because they just don't have an identity.
This team screams 2024 Seattle Mariners to me. You have a very, very hurt-up rotation. Maybe not a ton of top-end guys, but a ton of very solid guys that you feel really good about. And you have a lineup that's going to consistently let them down. Like, that's just what this team looks like to me. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think this lineup produces, like, on average, like 2 to 3 runs a game.
Yeah.
And, like, some of the guys in your rotation, that could be enough. Like, Crochet and Houck. Like, everybody else, 3 runs is not going to be enough.
Very uninspiring team to me. Do we have any final thoughts, or shall we move forward?
We move.
We move forward to the second place team in the AL East last season, a team that went to the playoffs, the first playoff team of 2 from the AL East, the Baltimore Orioles. They had a big offseason ahead of them. Obviously, we know how H feels about how that season is going down. What exactly has gone on in this?
Yeah, of course. They lost Corbin Burns, which I don't think a lot of people expected. They lost Anthony Santander, which was expected. John Means, James McCann, Eloy Jimenez, Deli Columbe, however you say his last name, I don't know, not important. Jacob Webb and Craig Kimbrell. They add Tyler O'Neill, Dylan Carlson, Gary Sanchez, Tamayuki Sagano, Charlie Morton at the ripe age of 90, Andrew Kittredge, and Ramon Laureano.
That's a laundry list of in and outs. My knee-jerk reaction is that the outs vastly outweighs the ins. H, do you agree?
Mike Elias. Oh boy. Okay, you replaced Corbin Burns. You replaced Corbin Burns. Look at me, Mike. You replaced Corbin Burns with Charlie Morton.
No, he replaced him in the aggregate.
You are not Brad Pitt.
Hey, let's be
Okay,
Be so for real. Not like Corbin Burns was that good last year.
but he's still Corbin Burns.
He's a top 10 pitcher in baseball.
You bet on the Cy Young winner in the prime of his career to return to form more than you do the guy who hurls 60% curveballs and is AARP eligible. I'm sorry. And look, some of these acquisitions.
Everybody is. Hey, wait, hang on. We're not sponsored, but everybody is AARP eligible. It is illegal to discriminate in these here United States.
Do not ruin my agenda. The Tyler O'Neill is a decent. It would be a decent signing if you didn't give up Anthony Santander for that. If you didn't replace,
I would prefer to have Santander over O'Neill. I would 100% say.
Here's my thing that I don't get about that is like, did they sign O'Neill because he was like, I want to play for you? Because the whole idea was like they were going to let Santander walk so Heston Kjerstad could make the damn lineup for once.
It's true.
Yeah, this is a very log jammed lineup, and this is a very, very thin rotation. You look at the rotation, and you have Zach Eflin, who kind of had a career resurgence last year, but also is 30 and hasn't been phenomenal outside of Tampa Bay. You have Grayson Rodriguez, who is yet to prove it at the major league level. Charlie Morton, who we mentioned is AARP eligible. And then you're bringing over Sugano from Japan, and you still have Dean Kremer hanging around it. 30-year-old Dean Kremer, who is yet to have a really solid season. Like, this rotation is hanging on by a thread, man.
And not to mention,
they still have. Yeah,
Trevor Rogers, another guy who
they traded for. They sent the Marlins starting third baseman to Miami, and they got back someone that was the 2 starter for Norfolk.
Yeah, that's bad.
They do still.
You have to be fair to them. To be fair to them, they have a couple guys that are injured, and I think this is where you're going to go, John. If Tyler Wells and Kyle Bradish both coming off of the injured list, but Bradish had Tommy John surgery last June. So did Wells. Like, you're not going to get them back until at least halfway into the season. At least. Man, like, I
don't know.
And even if you bring back somebody like a John Means, even if you bring back John Means, he's not going to inspire, but at least you have some depth, because right now they got nothing.
The lineup is good.
The lineup is still fun. Gunnar, Adley, O'Hearn, O'Neill joins, Colton Hauser, Mullins, Westberg, Holiday, Mountcastle. Like, every single guy in their lineup if you watch baseball, but like, are you just okay with finishing behind the Yankees every year? That's my question. It's like you didn't make any moves to get better. You tried to sign Dylan Cease, 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever, or trade for him, and you didn't get him because you know why? The White Sox wanted Jackson Holiday, and you said we don't want to give up Jackson Holiday. Well, now you brought up Jackson Holiday, and he was terrible last year.
He did have a rough rookie season. But still,
and obviously, like, who knows what he looks like for the rest of the year,
or the rest of his career,
but like,
would expect him to bounce back.
And at the time, that would have been Cease for a number one prospect. But like, I don't know. I just think it's like it, and we consistently talk about it. It's like, do you just want to finish behind the Yankees? Because if you do, you're going to make the playoffs. But if you want to finish behind the Yankees every year, you just keep doing what you're doing. Never win a division. Don't win a division, and if you do win a division, like last year, 2 years ago they did, you have to hope that the Yankees fall apart. Like, that's what annoys me with them, because I like them. I would love to root for the Orioles in the playoffs and actually believe that they're going to do something, but like, your team falls apart because you sign nobody, and then you get to the end of the season and you've got 3 of your 5 starting opening day starters, and 2 of them who are guys that you traded for and they're not working out because you won't trade for the top guys, even though you have a laundry list of guys who could be top 10 prospects in the next 10 years. Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
This is
little rant.
To me, a squeaky clean lineup, right? I don't think there's many holes in the lineup, and adding Tyler O'Neill to it is intriguing insofar as he's somebody that in the past has at least been thought of as somebody that could turn into an all-star type player. We haven't seen that yet. It really, really, really did not work out in St. Louis. It didn't really work out in Boston either. But he's projected right now as their 4. He's the best power hitter on this team. But you look top to bottom through this lineup, and there's a lot of names, as John was saying, of former top prospects who had very good rookie seasons, save Jackson Holiday, and who you expect to be 2.5 WAR players at the bare minimum. This rotation, or this lineup, is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting, I think, for the rotation this year. I'm hesitant to think that this lineup is not good enough to do that. I understand that we have questions about their rotation, but I think this lineup is good enough to push them for a division title regardless of who they're pitching. They just need to avoid being devastated by injuries.
I agree.
Yeah.
H.
I think
Final
I think
thoughts?
I think this is a team that needs to live up to its potential. And that's, it's because they're a team of prospects. I think, Jackson Holiday put up a dud rookie his first year. You have to come out swinging. You have to. You have to. He had such a good spring training. People were calling for him to be the day one starter, and they had Tony Kemp do that instead for some reason. But you don't justify another.
Good call by the haters.
Right, the haters were honestly right on that one. Don't let a Tony Kemp equivalent take that job for you, because this lineup, you're gonna get lost if you don't.
Agreed.
Yeah. And there's a handful of guys. One final thought quickly. There's a couple of guys, I think, in the lineup right now, in Ryan O'Hearn and Ryan Mountcastle at DH and first base, respectively, as projected by Fangraphs, who are not necessarily on that rookie watch list. But I think they're also there's an urgency underneath them as well, that if they don't perform, they're going to be passed up by a handful of guys that are sitting right on the fringe, because you still have to try and find playing time for Heston Kierstad. You still have to try and find playing time for Ramon Urias, right? And so even not just the rookies, even some of the veterans that, if they don't have great seasons, I think there's a lot of replaceable parts on this team. There's a lot of depth, and I think that's a strong point for these Orioles. Speaking of depth, something that was lost, we move to our top team in the American League East from last season, the New York Yankees.
Major offseason losses. Clay Holmes, Tommy Kahnle, Alex Verdugo, Anthony Rizzo, Lou Trevino, Tim Meza, John Birdie, Nestor Cortez, Cody Poteet, Jose Trevino, and some guy named John Soto. They also added over the offseason Devin Williams, Cody Bellinger, Max Fried, and Paul Goldschmidt. You guys think that John Soto guy is going to matter?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't know.
In all seriousness.
RIP Yankees World Series chances.
In all seriousness, though, I mean, look at the losses you have. Your bullpen just got gutted.
Yeah, it got devastated.
Yeah.
Gutted. And you brought in Devin Williams, who, I'll be perfectly honest with you, returning from injury, he didn't really get going. Maybe he'll have bounced back his first year in. He still hasn't shaved yet. Maybe something happens when he shaves.
John, I'd love to read you their current bullpen.
Tell me the bullpen. Tell me the bullpen.
Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, Ian Hamilton, Fernando Cruz, Mark Leiter Jr., JT Brubaker, and everyone's favorite old guy, Tim Hill.
Honestly, I don't even mind Fernando Cruz. He's a really live arm, and he did pretty good with the Reds. But that does not a good bullpen make.
It's a bad bullpen. It's a bad bullpen. They will be adding at the deadline a bullpen piece or two.
Ryan Helsley's going to be a Yankee.
Somebody
that
on the
is
White Sox
entirely
will have a
possible.
good year.
Somebody on the Rockies will have a good year.
Sounds
Yeah,
awesome.
this bullpen went from strong, not the greatest, but strong, to one of the worst bullpens in baseball. And they got worse on the offensive side of the ball because Juan Soto and frankly didn't do very much to replace him. I think Cody Bellinger is fine. Paul Goldschmidt is probably as good, if not slightly better, than Anthony Rizzo. But those two are your only offensive ads in the entire offseason that you lost arguably the best player in baseball? Come on. What are we doing?
Yeah. I don't know. I still like the lineup. The lineup is still okay. I mean, not okay, good. Volpe, Chisholm, Judge, Goldschmidt, Belly, Stanton, depending on how old he is. Austin Wells, I'd love to see what he looks like. Continues to look like. Jason Dominguez. Could he be Rookie of the Year?
Well,
the
this
answer is still yes.
You've been hearing rookie season?
Correct. His service time is 0.1, so he still has rookie status, does he not?
This is like Alex Verdugo, who had 3 different rookie cards in Topps baseball in 3 different seasons. Like I don't know, man.
That's what Jason will have, I think.
And he's replacing Verdugo.
He is replacing Verdugo. That is true. I just want to quickly point out, Oswaldo Cabrera is your starting third baseman. This is not a very good lineup.
You got to fix that.
You got to fix that.
Where's
I hear Alex Bregman's available.
Yeah. Sign. Can he sign somewhere? Go to the Red Sox.
Can you imagine him at the Yankees? After all the words that he's had for the Yankees over the years, can you imagine?
I apologize. Dominguez exceeded his rookie limits in last season.
We're free. We're free.
I just look, if Alex Bregman ends up in the Bronx of his own accord, that will be the greatest heel turn ever. Ever.
He's been a heel since the day he came up. Don't lie to me.
He has. But like, how do you turn heel even more when you're a heel? You go to the Yankees.
You go to Darth Vader. The Yankees are weird. They're gonna win the division. Like, come on. Like, but I don't think they're obviously, in my opinion, they're not getting back to the World Series because that rotation and that bullpen will not get you there. I don't know if we even talked about the rotation's
fine. For what it's worth, I think the rotation's fine. You have Garrett Cole, Max Fried, Carlos Rodon, who are all very solid top 3 guys. And then you have to get 2 serviceable starters out of Luis Hill, who had a great season last year, Clark Schmidt, Marcus Stroman, who's had great seasons in the past, and Jonathan Loaizaga, who's coming off of injury at some point. If you can get a serviceable year out of those guys combined, 2 serviceable years out of those guys combined, like, this is a very solid rotation. It's not a great rotation, but it's pretty solid.
Are they stretching Loaizaga out?
He's been in the rotation in the past. I think it depends how he comes back from injury more than anything.
Okay. I doubt it. Do we want to move on to picks for the division?
We can move on if you guys don't have any final thoughts on this Yankees team.
The Yankees are going to buy, and they'll be good once they buy. You got to find a third baseman. I doubt it's Alex Bregman. You know, the Cardinals have been trying to shop Nolan Arenado. I know he's been down, but he's a more established thing than Oswaldo Cabrera or Oswald Peraza. So
okay, well, it could be DJ LeMahieu. So
yeah,
DJ LeMahieu is still there. They
could get to that point in the season, John.
Let's just move on before we start talking about DJ LeMahieu too much.
They like legitimately, they may be starting DJ LeMahieu at third base by the time the trade deadline comes around, and they're literally like, "Hi, we'd like any third baseman who's on the market. Anybody, it doesn't matter. Jake Berger, welcome to the squad." Like, please don't trade for Jake Berger. I don't want to see that man without a beard. He's already bald.
He is already bald. That is true.
All right. John, who's your 5th place team?
I think that the
Adam,
Rays
are you writing this down?
I only write down division winners, but yes.
The Rays. I think the Rays are going to be the worst team. I think this is just they're doomed for regression. They're out of home. They're out of house and home. They're just not really a lot going on right now. They acquired some fun players, but I just have this nagging feeling that they're not going to really put it together.
My last place team in this division are the Tampa Bay excuse me, I've done this twice now. The Toronto Blue Jays. Fangraphs has them losing the division by 20 games. I think if they only lose the division by 20 games, it'll be a good season for them. I just see so many holes in that team. I see so many weak points and older players who are injury prone that won't be able to stay on the field for the full season. I don't think this organization has a direction, and I think this is the year that they finally start to bottom out.
I agree with John. I think the fifth place team will be the Rays. What I was going to say earlier when we originally talked about them, I think all of their pitching lab and all of their hitting lab stuff is going to fall apart because they don't get any games indoors. I legitimately think the Trop guaranteed atmosphere helps them a lot, and them having to play outside in the Florida sun is not going to be very fun for them. Either way, they finished last of the division. John, your fourth place team.
My fourth team is the Blue Jays. I think they'll be better this year. I think you're going to need these young players to start establishing themselves. I think they'll make the right strides towards it. But I have this fear that Ross Atkins, the GM in Toronto, is going to sell at the deadline if people are overperforming. I think he thinks they're further away than they are.
I think that's a fair read on the situation, which could go south very quickly for the Blue Jays. For me, my fourth place team is the Boston Red Sox. I think their ceiling is a 500 team, and their floor is well below that. I'm not as high on this rotation as John is. I really don't see Tanner Hoke or Garrett Crochet as anywhere even remotely in the conversation for Cy Young. There's just nobody really on this lineup that inspires me a whole ton. I just think that this team is not very good overall. They're extremely mid, and in a division that generally is, I have them being the odd team out.
My fourth place team is the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are going to be very close together. Honestly, it's like coin flip who finishes third, who finishes fourth. I don't think either team makes the playoff. I think if the Blue Jays just figure it out for like a month, they're going to finish above the Red Sox. I don't think the Red Sox are going to be consistent, but I don't know if that happens. John, your third place.
My third place, the Baltimore Orioles. I'm sorry, they didn't do enough. They didn't do enough for me. And I think that's less of an indictment on Baltimore, as I think that Boston might actually have something. I really do believe that. So I think it'll be a tight race. I could even see all three of them going to the playoffs. I honestly. But for the division itself, they lost a little too much production for me to feel comfortable with them in the top two.
My third place is Tampa Bay. I know that you guys don't necessarily feel confident in their ability to play outdoors. I actually think that's going to be an advantage for them to play in an actual decent ballpark for the first time in franchise history. I think that held them back more than people realize. And I think in a weird season like this where you're playing at kind of a spring training park and you figure that out, I think Tampa Bay is that organization. I like the players that they added this offseason, especially Alex Faedo. I don't feel that they lost anybody too terribly bad. If they can avoid the injury bug in there.
John?
My third place team is the Red Sox. Like I said with the Blue Jays, I think they're a coin flip between third and fourth. John, I can see where you're coming from. I think the Red Sox could be good. Just I don't know if they will be. I don't think they will be. Your second place team, sir.
My second place team, I kind of already mentioned it, is the Boston Red Sox. I think Garrett Crochet will win the AL Cy Young. And I think he will do enough to keep them well in stride with the New York Yankees, who, got, as last team available in the pick. They're going to be my first place team, but I'll save the diatribe for them. Really? I know. Yeah, no, they moved the Athletics over to the East since they don't have a town. But really, I think a lot of it for me is just I really like that Garrett Crochet move.
Garrett Crochet certainly has upside. We'll see if he can live up to that. For me, my second place team are the New York Yankees. I know that both of you guys think the Yankees are going to win the division. For me, I just don't think that they've done enough this offseason to get them there. They lost Juan Soto and did nothing to replace him. Their bullpen got exponentially worse. Yes, they're going to add at the deadline. And yes, they'll get better after they add at the deadline. But will they have already dug themselves a big enough hole that it's going to be hard to climb out of at that point? In my opinion, yes. I think this team has gotten markedly worse this offseason. I don't think the Orioles have gotten any better, but I don't think they've gotten worse, and the Yankees have, and that's the difference for me.
John? John?
I've made the decision.
Oh, dear God.
Pause for suspense. This gives me feelings in my body of last year when I said the Cardinals were going to win the NL Central. That was before Cody Bellinger signed, and before I knew Reese Hoskins was going to be an MVP. Yankees in second place. I agree with Adam. I think they got worse. I think the Orioles didn't get worse. I don't think they got better either. But I think that I guess like we all did this. So I'm going to just talk about my first place team too. Like I think Adley is going to have a lot better of a year than he did last year. I think Gunner's going to have the same year that he had last year. I think full seasons of Kauser and the other guy,
Kierstead, Holiday,
all of those guys, to be honest, are going to be fun to watch. And I think that they will win the division. I think it's going to be close. I don't know what Adam, I don't think you gave a number of how many games they win by, but it may be 3 or 4. This may be back like in 23 when we were watching and it was like, who's going to win the division? We have no idea. It's back and forth every other week. And I think it'll be fun. So that puts, John has, just to recap, John has the Yankees in first. Adam and I have the Orioles.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Do we want to have final thoughts on our winners? I know we both kind of blended our winners in our second place, but do we want to at least go through our winners?
Yeah. I mean, it's the New York Yankees for me. It's I think they will acquire a third baseman before spring training is over. I hope for their sake they do. Because right now, honestly, Nolan Arenado he's halfway out the door already, right? And if he comes to the Bronx,
the thing is if they add Nolan Arenado, I would flip my pick. Like, and if they add him, and they have him for the whole year. If they have him for the whole year, it's he gives them 3 wins and they beat the Orioles.
So for me, I'm thinking it's the Yankees. I think that rotation's gonna be good this year. I don't think it's like a clear Cy Young or anyone because again, I said that was Garrett Crochet. I just think that they're too solidly built everywhere that they don't have holes. And I think you'll lose Juan Soto. I don't think Cody Bellinger's going to have that bad of a year. I'll be honest. I think he might have a pretty good year. So,
I could totally see him having a good year, but I don't see him having a Juan Soto type year. And that's the production you're trying to replace here with a Baltimore team that's young and has a lot of players that I think are going to be shored up this year. Jackson Holiday, chief among them. but also Gunnar Henderson, if he has the same season he had last year. Adley Rutschman, I think, to a degree, had a little bit of a disappointing season last year, which is crazy to say. But if he takes a step in the right direction and you get more production from the crew of O'Neill or Gary Sanchez or Ramon Laureano, Ryan O'Hearn, your veteran guys, if you get more production out of those spots, which I think is totally possible, this lineup, I think, is strong enough to lift their rotation, no matter how bad that rotation is. And I don't think it's a bad rotation. I think it's a fine rotation. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's a bad rotation.
I think their deadline ad will be very telling.
Definitely agree.
Want to hit grid?
Let's hit the grid.
Okay, the grid looks like this today, and I'll explain it, or I'll tell you what it is too, because there's audio listeners. But it looks like that. That means column 1 is the Twins. Column 2 is the Braves. I'm sorry. Column 3 is the Hall of Fame. Row 1 is the Cleveland team. Row 2 is the Boston team, and row 3 is played a game at catcher, minimum of 1 game. Anybody got anything? John?
Ooh.
Braves row.
Braves. Was it Braves Twins? Braves Guardians.
Braves Guardians, Braves Red Sox, Braves catcher.
Braves Guardians, Braves Red Sox, Braves catcher.
Grissom.
Braves Guardians, Pablo Sandoval. He was in Cleveland, right? I'm not like...
Oh, that did not count.
Really?
So I think the answer is no.
Oh, shit.
I'm going to re-pull up grid on in a different tab. And you're
right.
going to go again.
All right. Let's see. I'm trying to think of... Because he was like a pretty big pull for me there. Huh. I mean, Eddie Rosario was there, but he was there kind of like... what about Abraham Almonte?
For which?
Braves Guardians is one of them, right?
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Almonte. 0.1%.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good.
Braves Red Sox could have also been Almonte.
Braves Red Sox, I like JD Drew. Thoughts on that?
I like
John?
I like JD Drew. I like JD Drew. My first one was gonna be Zach Short, but that was an in-season trade this past season. I feel like it's too on the mind. Do JD Drew.
JD Drew is 2%.
I like it.
As for catcher. How about AJ Pierzynski?
Maybe. Okay. 2%.
Okay. I mean, how obvious is Twins catcher Willians Astudillo?
I feel like that's
obvious, I would think.
pretty. Yeah, I'm looking at Twins Red Sox right now. What do you guys feel about Bartolo Colon?
Oh, yeah.
Always worked. 2%.
2%. Like the milk.
Correct. I guess.
What squares do we have left?
Twins, Cleveland, Twins catcher, Hall of Fame row with Cleveland, Boston catcher.
Boston Hall of Fame. Didn't Ricky play in Boston?
I actually don't know that off the top of my head.
What do we think about Chris Jimenez for catcher for the Twins? No, wait, I'm sorry. I'm lying. No, I don't like that. Never mind.
Okay.
I apologize.
Never mind then.
I like lying.
For Twins Guardians, thoughts on Jordan Luplow?
That's a good one. Braves legend.
Yeah, I like that. That's 0.3. Good job.
Hey, that'll play. So we still need all the catchers and all the Hall of Famers, correct?
Yeah.
I have.
we got Braves.
Actually, I don't. I kind of do like Jimenez for Twins catcher. Now that I come back to it.
Okay.
Thoughts?
That's fine by me.
0.02. It was very fine by us.
Oh, yeah.
Now we need Hall of Famers.
I have a Cleveland
Somebody name a
Hall
Cleveland Hall of Famer.
Satchel Paige.
Go ahead. 4%. Boston Hall of Famer.
Ricky.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Ricky, 2%. Played catcher Hall of Famer. Joe Mauer.
Well, probably not Joe Mauer.
I feel like we could dig a little deeper here.
It's better than Joe Mauer. Yeah, I agree, guys.
Because I think your obvious ones are going to be him, Yogi Berra, John Bench, Pudge Rodriguez. Yeah. Maybe like a Carlton Fisk. I don't know. What do you think?
I love Carlton Fisk. Let's use him. Good with everyone?
Yeah, because it's gonna be him or like
Fisk 5%. Not bad.
Hey, that'll work. That'll work.
16.
Hardest spot on the grid. 18. John. Hardest spot on the grid today was Braves Cleveland. Ladies and gentlemen, that will wrap up the AL East. Oh, he's wowing. And I don't know what is going on. If you're not watching the visual version of this podcast,
you should be.
Interesting. If you're on Spotify, does Spotify doesn't have video.
Yeah, I upload the videos to Spotify. So if you're watching on Spotify,
yeah, but I don't ever see it when I pull it up.
Sometimes I think like web
John,
like
I
web
think
clients.
You have the same blanket.
This blanket.
Well, that's nice.
Maybe. No, maybe not. No, we don't. But if you're not watching, you should watch because sometimes Adam and John are talking and I'm just making funny faces because I'm bored.
He gets bored when we talk because it's not his turn to talk, and that's difficult for him.
Yeah. I actually very much like to hear the sound of my own voice.
We know we do a show with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're not listening, watch. If you're not watching, listen. If you're walking down the street and you see somebody who looks like they might enjoy baseball, slap them across the face and tell them to listen to the Chatting Average. Don't do that, but tell them to listen to the Chatting Average. If you know a friend who needs to listen to the Chatting Average, tell them. Don't forget to like and subscribe
on Twitter.
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. Don't forget to rate the podcast as a whole if you're on any of the podcast apps. Find us on Twitter at Chatting AVG.
You can also just text us to rate the podcast. Like if you text me 3 stars, I'll know exactly.
If you do that, but also send Adam your favorite meme. The Chatting Average Twitter is, or X, the everything app, is the Chatting AVG.
Yep.
John Sansoni, Adam Busak, me, John Lieber. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week with a division we haven't picked out yet.
Yay!
Bye.